first of all, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and thank the online audience for tuning in, and anyone who will be watching this recording later. It's really a privilege to have everyone here, have this really, really excellent lineup of speakers. We have a number of topics to address and a lot of subject matter experts related to anything from branding, entrepreneurship, community engagement, et cetera. So there's really great opportunity, and hopefully those who are attending can field a lot of good questions, and there can be some really great dialogue that takes place here. With that, we'll kick it off. Warwick and Takesha are the COO and the CEO of the Brand Amplifiers. So the Brand Amplifiers is a really pivotal system for, custom system for leveraging uniqueness and your experience and robust technology to elevate your brand. They've done a lot of work in the entrepreneur ecosystems in two different, bi-coastally here in Las Vegas, as well as over in Florida and a number of other places. But we're really excited to have them. They're entrepreneurs, branding experts, a dynamic duo, if you will. So thank you for joining us, and we're pretty excited to have you. Going further down, we have Lauren Anderson. Lauren is the founder and CEO of All In Recruiting. She is a trailblazing businesswoman, and she actually is she's on the short list, the unfortunate short list of women entrepreneurs who have raised venture capital. And that, as many of you might know, we'll probably discuss some of that today, is that's like 2.3% of venture capital dollars are going into that. So Lauren is of that party. So we're really excited to have her and get her insights there, and also her expertise in kind of the branding, business, entrepreneurship, and of course, recruiting, if any questions come up with that. Ken Evans. Ken is, I would call him a businessman, also an ecosystem advocate, an investor. There's a number of different ways that I could put him, but he's currently also a consultant NYS firm. And he does community programs advisory for them, amongst other things. So I'll let him make a later introduction. He's been a big ally of ours for years now, working with us, both here and then in his previous role at the Urban Chamber, as president of the Urban Chamber. And of course, last but not least, we have Yves Perez. Yves Perez is a Nevada-based tech entrepreneur, and many of you tuning in will probably know what Techstars is. Techstars is a pretty big deal in the terms of the world of startups and tech startups and accelerators. He is a Techstars graduate. He is the founder, CEO, and chairman of WorkBnB, and I'll let Yves get into a little bit about what that is. But he is in the thick of it right now, getting into tech, raising capital, scaling an enterprise, et cetera. And then, of course, he's also got some branding and marketing experience. So I think we got a good mix of, some analogous figures here in our panel. But with that being said, I'm going to loop it all the way back up to Warwick and Takesha. If you guys want to do a slightly longer introduction for yourselves, and then we will go in that same order, and then we'll kick off some questions.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So we're Warwick and Takesha Roundtree, as mentioned. How are you all doing? It's so good to see you.
Those that we can.
Right. So when our daughter was 8 years old, we branded her as a DJ, and we hijacked so much attention that her client list grew to attract the Obama administration, Amazon, McDonald's, Verizon, Lexus, MTV, and so many other companies. So we created a process and a marketing execution plan that worked every single time we did it. Right. And so we are very intentional about doing what we did for her for every small business that we work with. That is our biggest intention. We work primarily with women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and veteran-owned businesses. So that is what we do, and we're extremely happy to be here.
That's right. I have to say
excellent. Well, thank you guys so much. I think that as we're going down there, Lauren, please kick it off. Tell us a little bit more about more than what I went into.
Yes, so I am happy to be here. Happy Women's History Month.
Hey.
Yeah, give it up for the ladies. It sounds like I need to call Takesha, right? That's amazing what you guys have done with branding.
Thank you.
Happy to be here in the room. I am the owner of All In Recruiting and Talent Boutique, and we're an executive search firm. We're helping companies around the country to hire top talented and diverse professionals for all industries. And so happy to talk about entrepreneurship and the journey therein, venture capital and the process that requires, and just have a great conversation. So I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lauren. Ken, to you.
Hey, good afternoon or good early evening to everyone. Hopefully you're enjoying March Madness, my favorite time of the year. But tonight and this afternoon, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship madness, if you will. Looking forward to it. As Logan mentioned, I'm currently the community programs advisor for the MIS firm. In that role, I try to help give people information on how to complete projects or programs that will help with both program management as well as project management, ultimately improving the community and economic development efforts. What he also mentioned is prior to this position, I was the president for the Urban Chamber of Commerce for nearly 9 years. And in that role, I worked with a lot of small, diverse businesses, as well as interacted with nonprofits and corporate entities as well. So bottom line is, I like to think that I got a feel for the entrepreneurship road, in addition to being one myself in a previous life. And I just hope to share some of that wisdom, knowledge, expertise, and lessons learned for what I could have done better as well.
Excellent, Ken. Thank you so much. And thank you for continued support of our organization and along with Lauren through the years. Yves, to you, my friend, kick it off.
Hey. All right. So thank you for having me. Again, my name is Yves Perez, co-founder, CEO of WorkBnB. We believe traveling workers matter. We are crazy out here. We are starting an app. We started an app, building an app during COVID, and now we're still building in a recession. But we're launching an indirect competitor app to Airbnb, but it's only for traveling workers that travel across the United States to do their jobs. And we get them access to comfortable housing throughout the United States. We're alpha testing in 9 states right now. We have quite a few big projects that we're working on. But I got to tell you, I'm raising capital right now. Going through the TechStars program really elevated my education on fundraising and how marketing and branding can help you in fundraising. So this is why this is kind of interesting that we're having this discussion. But one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is, being an example for young Black and Brown founders that are trying to get into tech, that are really trying to create real sustainable businesses, because I believe that tech is the fastest way that we're going to close the generational wealth gap for Black and Brown families. So again, Yves Perez, I'm excited to be here.
Yves, thank you so much. And setting us off with with kind of tone and with that. And Yves, I'll actually put the first question to you. And again, I'll remind the audience, please put it in the chat or raise your hand. You raise your hand. We'll try to field your questions. We'll start off with a few questions from us. But
Logan, before we start, I just want to say, Yves, congratulations on the Raiders win. I saw it. That's great. I'm so happy when I saw that for you. So just a big congrats on that. Okay, I'll shut up.
Yeah.
Well, no, I do. Let's point out Rukshana Hussain is actually our director of marketing here at Startup NV. So I can't do all this alone, and she can't either. So we're really happy that we could have worked together and started off with the round trees and the brown amplifiers. So Rukshana, I want to do a shout out to you and our team as well about making this happen. So thanks for bringing it together with me.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Yves, to you, and and we could probably highlight this with the recent pre-collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and how it's impacted entrepreneurs. So, my first question to you, and please take it away however you'd like to answer this, is how do you balance the need to take risks and make these really bold moves as an entrepreneur should? You kind of got to test the market. You got to take risks that are nominal with your business model. But how do you manage these risks and ensure long-term success for your business? What strategies have you used to kind of strike that balance between leaning into doing what's daring and also, we also either have employees or cash flow we need to monitor, or market brand share, et cetera?
Yeah. So I mean, it's tough. I got to tell you, the climate has definitely changed in tech. Right now, you have to do more with less. You have to be wise, but you have to be bold and you have to stand out. I mean, now standing out is challenging, and an industry where there are new ideas launching like almost every day. There's a new platform almost every day. There's a new product almost every day. So you have to, do a lot of things that keep, the people like talking about you and that memory. But the way to balance it out for me, because I'm in B2B SaaS, is that I have to look at several factors, such as like, how am I doing in demand gen? Like what are the numbers? And I have to weigh that against my burn rate. And I have to keep an eye on, and these are new things that I just learned. Like, I don't want anybody to think I've been doing this for like 10 years, but Techstars taught me a lot about net dollar retention and keeping an eye on your churn. Because if you just think that everything is going to go right, you could really be in a lot of trouble that, you're stunting your growth because you're focused on the wrong things. So how do I deploy my strategy is number one, I'm all about experience. And if for our case, creating the best customer experience usually wins, and it creates a very lasting memory within people that they want to do that experience again. So you're getting that repeat, in my case, repeat bookings. So end-to-end wow experience, not just the product, but also like customer success, making sure that billing is clean and nice. Everything, if people have questions, it's answered in a certain amount of time. Those are things that, a lot of founders really need to learn really well. And Logan, as you know your numbers, right? If you're gonna take a calculated risk, what is that going to do to your numbers, right? So, I'm very much, getting into that discipline. And every time we look at an opportunity on the demand gen side, we always weigh it out against these factors.
Gotcha. Appreciate you, Vez. And you're right. Like, I think that a lot of founders are like, this is what hurt kind of the previous upstart in startups is growth at all costs and risk at all costs, because someone will bail you out, and that's not the case anymore. So yeah, I agree. But you talked a bit about branding, so I'll pivot over a little bit to Warwick and Takesha. Is how do you create a brand identity that stands out in a crowded market? And you may be able to speak to some of the stuff, for Yves, it's everyone knows who Airbnb is, or they default to just kind of regularly booking extended stays for their workforce. So Yves has got some marketing and branding experience. And of course, I want to talk to you guys about how do you create a brand identity that stands out in a crowded market, and what sort of the key elements every successful brand should have and be considering as it gets started.
Yeah, I think one thing as entrepreneurs we should all keep in mind is an attitude of brand as business. Meaning, there's at one point in time, you come to a branding firm, you're looking for colors, you're looking for identity, you're looking for your who you are and all these things. But really, if you know who you are from the beginning and you take your values and you instill that into your brand, and you make that what the business is centered around, and that way what problems you solve, exactly who your audience is, and you're able to cater to that audience directly by pulling at the heartstrings, making them heroes when they purchase your product or service, making them feel like they're doing better for the world or whatever their cause, or something that they are actively involved in or really heartfelt about. So understanding who you are before you build that brand and put effort into that is extremely important in how you build your brand and stand out in a crowded market.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add to that, know your customer.
Yes.
I cannot express that enough. Know who your audience is, know everything about them. That is extremely helpful in making sure that your brand can be sustained, because you are targeting the right people, you're having conversation with the right people,
Yep.
building community with the right people. And as Yves said earlier, having experiences with the right people. So that's first and foremost. And then the other thing is creating or having a brand story that attracts your specific customer. Right. And so one of the examples I love is, like, let's just think about either A, you're dating now, or B, when you were dating, right? And you go out on this date, you had a lot of fun, and you get asked by either a mentor or a priest or a pastor, you know, someone in your life that has authority, and they ask you, how was your date last night? The way you answer them will be very different than if your best friend asked you, how was your date last night,
100%.
right? So it's the same story has occurred, but how you tell that story is going to be different based on who you are talking to. So that is the importance of knowing your customer so that you're speaking the right language to attract them,
Right tone.
right? The right tone,
Right messaging.
right?
Right
Even
time.
the way you express yourself is different based on who you're talking to, right? So keep that story in mind when you are speaking to your audience and knowing what kind of story you need to attract them. And then understanding or taking advantage of the qualities that make you different from your competitors, right? Let's think about Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Now, I'm not an ice cream fan. I know, boo me. So many people love ice cream, right? But I'll eat it. And we had this experience with Ben and Jerry's. We go to Ben and Jerry's, and it was myself, my husband, our 2 kids, and it was like almost $45. And I'm like, for ice cream, that's a lot of money, right? But then a couple of months go by, and this conversation about Ben and Jerry comes up. And so I start looking them up online, and I realize that they have a cause. They don't just sell ice cream, right? They stand for diversity. They've gone to Capitol Hill. They fought for equal rights for everyone. And now that causes me to like them more. So now I'll only buy Ben & Jerry's if I have to buy ice cream, right? Simply because of what they stand for. So that makes them stand out. Even to someone like myself who doesn't necessarily care for ice cream, I now support what they do and who they are.
Yeah, that just hammers down that brand as business idea. And Yves brought it up earlier. He talked about the customer experience. The customer experience is 100% just one of the greatest things opportunities you're gonna have. And like he said, I love how you put that. He put it from end to end, and that's extremely important because from even because a lot of people don't understand the importance of their UX or whatever it may be when they're designing and their website doesn't flow properly from one device to the next. Or we had a potential client once that we interviewed and we didn't do business with because he kept saying things like, hey, I like to do things out of order. And, I want to go into this sales campaign, but, we're looking at his website and we're like, bro, your website it's if I'm auditing your website, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Actually, you're not taking into consideration your customer, because when your customer comes here, he's going to lose all types of trust for you. They're going to, and all these types of things, and it's not going to go over well at the end. So the customer experience, 100%, has to do with everything that's customer facing.
Right.
And that's what's going to make you stand out amongst the crowd.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, appreciate your feedback on that. Lauren, Ken, as you guys have any additional commentary on it? We covered quite a breadth of that component. Do you guys have anything to add or any additional insights or anecdotes?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, no, I agree with what they've mentioned so far, right? A business that only makes money is a poor business. And so, having people to galvanize around a cause and what you do outside of making money, whether that be saving people, saving the planet, being more sustainable, right? Finding more efficient processes are always going to set you apart and be very, very big key differentiators in the market. So yeah, I love what they mentioned so far.
Excellent. Ken, you were saying.
Yeah, thank you, Logan. What I liked about what Takesha and Ward suggested is the idea of doing things or having a story that people can identify with. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out. In my previous tenure as the president for the Urban Chamber of Commerce, our board chair at the time, Shondell Newsom, used to talk about creating and having loyal brand champions. And the way that happened was because you had a story or you gave people an experience that they could remember. And so in turn, they became a loyal brand champion for you. When it comes to having a story, and by the way, I want to quickly say, I love Ben & Jerry's Cherry Garcia. So shout out to them for that. as well as the causes that they further. What I wanted to share with you is my story when I had my business was a lot of times years ago, I had a real estate development consultant company, and the name of the company was MTE Enterprises LLC. Well, my name is Kenneth Charles Evans. So people would look at me puzzled and they go, MTE, that, you know, they didn't get it. Well, then what I would quickly share with them is MTE were the initials for my mother, Maddie Thompson Evans. And very quickly, my story was from a single parent household. My mom raised 3 boys. I have a twin and a younger brother. All 3 of us became engineers. I became a civil engineer. And so doing that, I got into the area of real estate development from an engineering standpoint. But again, the real story or part of the story was MTE or Maddie Thompson Evans was my mother. And I like to tell people I wouldn't be in the position to do what I did if not for my mother. So a lot of people remember that story, which made them gravitate towards me from a business standpoint. So very important to have that story that people can tie into and ultimately, hopefully become a loyal brand champion for you.
Excellent. Thanks, Ken. This next question, Ken, we talked about, I mean, I feel like a few people touched on community and things like that. So I'll bring the leads in this question next. And I'm sure that, you know, there might be some insight that everyone can pass on this. So, but I'm going to hand it to Lauren, because Lauren just recently finished up her Sharkish event. And Lauren, you can do a quick stab of what that is. But the question I have for you after you do that is, and then proceeding to the rest of the panel is, what do you think the role of broader business in the community can be in being supporting and empowering minority entrepreneurs, and what specific actions can individuals, organizations take to promote diversity and inclusion in the startup world or in their even in their local ecosystems?
That's a great question. And yes, I am happy to talk about Sharkish always. So the Sharkish is a pitch contest that I started in 2021. And so when I was blessed to obtain venture capital back in 2020, which really helped change my life and helped me to continue to scale my high growth business, I found it appropriate to pay it forward, right? And to develop a social responsibility that would also help to solve that problem for other founders. And so Sharkish was born in 2021. We literally invite the community and now even the world to pitch into this contest to provide their video pitch, their financials, and their projections of what they would do with the seed funding. So far, we've awarded over $20,000 to adult founders as well as youth. And we're really proud of the initiative. And, you know, I think that, and so shout out to the people on here that have actually supported. I'm very happy to have you, by the way, Ken, Logan, Startup Envy, Yvez, yes, all a part of the Sharkish, and, you know, we couldn't do it without you guys. So I think, you know, there are a number of things that people can do to fill in the gap for minority founders. The number one being access to capital, right? That's all of our issues. And I can say it's still an issue for me, and I have venture capital backers, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's never enough. You know, you have examples of people that are billionaires, or SVB, right? It's a great example right now, that are still having issues with money because business is hard. And it is expensive, right? To learn new things, to actually have access to resources. Most times it takes money to make more money. And so, you know, I think people who are not minority founders can definitely understand the gaps in knowledge that we have. Some of the experiences that other people have are not existing for us. More often than not, we're first generation entrepreneurs, right? My grandfather was a great entrepreneur, but my father was not, right? My mother was not. So I had an example, but there are a lot of minority founders that don't have that example. So when it comes to cash flow management, how do you do projections? What's a balance sheet? How do I get my P&Ls together? Those are types of skills that we really need access to, and workshops, or just being able to have mentors in the industry that can help us fill those knowledge gaps so that when we are able to approach VCs or private investors or what have you, we're prepared and we can actually maintain it, and then we can grow and do the work. So lots of opportunity there to fill in the gaps. There's another example of a meeting that I went to recently about Rancho Drive. And they were talking about, you know, how the street is going to be renovated and there could possibly be people that will be displaced. And so my suggestion was, well, why don't we chart a new path and talk about how, you know, instead of these people being displaced and moved to another place, which could be equally good for them, why not also give them resources for the generations in their home to understand how to grow a business? Maybe they have ideas. And at some point in the future, if that particular area becomes a commercial district, right, for economic development, they can then be a business owner. So my grandma got kicked out of her house because they wanted a highway, basically, right? But they didn't just give us the money and send us on our way. They actually gave us access to places like the Urban Chamber that would do workshops. And now my grandson is a, you know, great entrepreneur and has a business on that street where we used to live. So things like that make a huge difference.
Those are some really excellent suggestions, and thank you for bringing those. Ken, I'll bounce into you because I think that this is an addendum to the question. And of course, you know, I invite the other panelists to chime in on this as well. As you've kind of stepped inside both realms of like kind of supporting entrepreneurs, even investing, et cetera, but also with the local community heading economic development initiatives with the community. So can you kind of share what do you think are some of the effective strategies for startups or small businesses to connect with their local community, local ecosystem, and how can these connections benefit both startups and entrepreneurs and the community as a whole?
Thank you, Logan, and also thank you, Lauren, for the shout out. Although I retired from the Urban Chamber, I'm still part of the family, and they're part of the family with me as well. What I would suggest is if you're a brand new business or a startup, get involved with business organizations and associations, whether it's a Chamber of Commerce, whether it's like there's LaTip, there's whether it's an ethnically based business organization, get involved with those business organizations. And the reason why, or part of the reason why, is that's an opportunity to connect with the community through that chamber opportunities or the business organization's objectives. For example, at the Urban Chamber, part of the reason why we wanted our small diverse businesses to be part of the ecosystem is because at the end of the day, businesses do three things. They employ people, they put their resources back into the community, and then they participate in political engagement. So the bottom line, or part of our bottom line, was get involved with our chamber, and then in turn, you can impact the community in these three areas. At the same time, it should be mutually beneficial. And where I'm coming from here is, if you get involved, for example, with the Chamber of Commerce, you participate, you go to the events, maybe every now and then you sponsor something. After a while, going back to the issue about branding, you develop a brand that you're a good corporate citizen, if you will. And I will say this, when you look at some of the younger generations, especially millennials and younger, what's important to them is it's not just about profit and loss, it's also about how are you positively making a social and economic impact through your endeavors as a business. So what I'm suggesting is that can be good for your bottom line. Let's go back to the story that Takesha told. Although she's not a fan of ice cream, and beyond that, had a little bit of sticker shock, at the end of the day, what she came to appreciate is that it was worth it to pay a little bit more, because part of the business model with Ben and Jerry's is that they are making a social impact. So that's what I would suggest, is that as a new or an emerging entrepreneur, it's never too early to A, connect with business organizations, and B, whatever you can do to contribute to the community, do it, because that will make your brand solid.
Excellent. Ken, that's some really good insight. It came full circle there with the Ben and Jerry's. I'm assuming Ben and Jerry's could come up at least one more time in the course of the conversations we'll have here.
Yep.
Yves, Keisha, Warwick, do you have anything to add? We covered the breadth of, what are some additional resources the community could use for minority founders, and also how to engage with your community as a founder.
Right, right. Well, one thing that I'm hoping to be an example of for other Black and Brown entrepreneurs coming into tech is, that we don't have to have the old school tech pedigree. Like, we don't have to be like a Stanford dropout. We don't have to be ex-Uber. We don't have to be a 2 or 5X founder to be successful. We have to be passionate. We have to be disciplined, and we have to be incredibly obsessed with our customers and their pain. And as we keep making sales, we keep showing that, hey, like, we don't have to be this cookie cutter entrepreneur this is the model for a successful company, right? That new ideas and new backgrounds can come in and dominate in this field. And one of the things that I'm really trying to persuade, especially here in Nevada, is that angel investors, we have to get really in this game. Like, as angel investors, like, if you wrote 5 checks last year, let's write 10 next year. Like, let's get like really busy into this, because, ecosystems are popping up all over America. Orlando, Miami, Austin, Atlanta, and they're all vying for talent to relocate to those ecosystems. And, any entrepreneur can be like pulled into that campaign to move to Atlanta, to move to Orlando, and, they could hit it big, create a bunch of jobs, make huge returns for their investors, and maybe even go IPO, but they were born in Nevada. And I think we need to do our best to keep our talent here, to keep our students here, and angel investors are part of that equation. So, again, like, I know angel investors who have made investments in previous companies, like last 5-10 years. But again, it was like an older kind of like model. Now things are shifting, new faces are coming in. And again, we don't have those pedigrees. So again, I'm kind of like the outlier. I enjoy being the outlier. I have fun being the outlier, but but I can showcase that I can make sales, I can make my customers happy, and I can keep growing my brand in these down times. I mean, this is a recession, and those who keep branding well in a recession are the ones that come out as like the big successes that people remember, a decade later. So, that's where my focus is.
Excellent. Yeah, Yves, appreciate that. Warwick, do you guys have anything to add? And we now a breadth of, community assets, branding, what about, the incident for minority founders and the various resources they are looking for? You guys have anything to add to what we've discussed thus far?
Yeah, one of I'm going to circle back to the question about, and I'm going to repeat the question just so that we're clear on what I'm answering. What are some of the effective strategies for startups to connect with their local community and ecosystem? And how can these connections benefit both the startup and the community as a whole? And I wanted to actually address the question from a different perspective, because I really, really love what Ken said. But what I notice a lot in entrepreneurship are there's so many entrepreneurs who are introverts, right? So what happens when I'm not very comfortable being in a space with other people, but you're asking me to network, right? Well, I have to network, I have to join this and I have to join that, but I'm not comfortable in those spaces. And a lot of people don't believe it now, but that is actually me. It actually is still me, right? So Warwick is very open and he can talk to anyone, and I'm typically not that person. So I'm going to share some of the things that have been helpful to me. So the first is when Warwick comes up with a space, a community that he wants us to be a part of, typically my eyes start rolling because I'm like, oh my God, another place I gotta be. I don't wanna go, right? Because I gotta talk to people. But what ends up happening is I look them up, I see what they're about, And then I immediately first think of how I could be of benefit to them. And Ken mentioned this, right? What value am I bringing to them? When you bring value to people, they are attracted to you. It makes it so much easier for them to talk to you because you have something to offer them. So you want to walk into spaces thinking about that first and foremost. Secondly, get comfortable, especially if you don't know how to start a conversation. One of the things that is always extremely helpful is find something about someone in the room that you like and compliment it. That's always a great way to start a conversation. Oh my God, I love your whatever, your shoes, your top, you know, your sunglasses, whatever you can find out about them that you like, compliment that thing, that will start a conversation. Next thing you know, you're talking about business. The third thing is, this one works well for me, but that's also part of my personality, is I always wear something that stands out. So whether it's my nails, my hat, something that attracts people to me so that I don't have to be the conversation starter.
I was just going to say a conversation starter.
Right.
That's pretty much what you're looking at. Something that stands out. It was funny because we started out before we started managing our daughter as a DJ, doing events in Las Vegas. And we cornered a great part with, I don't know if you guys remember an event called the Untamed Tongues Poetry Lounge, but we did that for 5 years. And it was spectacular. And we still get love to this day about it. We have some of the radio personalities that come to us about it and whatever. But there was this one guy that I ran into when we were doing all those things. And he was an artist, and they would go across the country and to different festivals and events and things of that sort. But they had a strategy. They were very intentional, right? So they would dress a particular way, the whole crew of them. You know what I mean? Nothing really crazy, outlandish, but enough that it just stood out. You know what I mean? And it just garnered a lot of attention, a lot of conversation. And then, but his intention was, I'm not going to just do it. I'm not doing this just for the people here in San Antonio. I'm going over to Chicago down the line to another festival, and we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to, and then when I get there, I'm going to run into somebody I saw in San Antonio. I guarantee you it. Right. And he continues that around the country until he's built this brand and this community, right, and this type of thing that permeates. And now he stands out amongst his competition in a lot of ways, because he took that one little step to just be different or stand out from the pack.
Right.
Yep. Right. Excellent. I had myself muted there for a minute. Excellent. Well, I've got one more question. I'm going to give it to, I would like kind of the response from everyone on this, and we'll start just down the line as well. And then I'll open it up to any of the online attendees that want to ask anything, put it into the chat. We're happy to ask that. I've got a bunch more questions, so I can keep going all day, but I want to make sure that we get an opportunity for them. I think here's a key thing, and this will be really telling a lot of key advice in part here is, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to start their own business? And what do you know? And this can be industry specific for what, whether it's tech, branding, recruiting, et cetera. What do you wish you had known before you started on your own? And we'll start at the top again for Warwick and Takesha, if you guys could answer that question for us.
So the thing that I wish I knew or understood back then was your immediate friend group or family group is not likely to be your audience. Right.
In fact, you should plan. In fact, you should plan otherwise.
Right. So a lot of us have these great ideas or these products or a service.
So heartfelt about it.
And, your family or your friends, you're like, I don't see what the big deal is. And that's okay. But it doesn't mean that it's a fail. It just means you have to find your people. You have to find your tribe, your community. And so your brilliance does not require the validation of your immediate circle. Right. Again, you just need to find your people. And so once you're speaking the right language to the right people, you will find them, you will attract them, and you can start from there. And if I had known that, it would have been far less discouraging in the begining.
Right.
Yeah. Because a lot of us, it's like, oh my God, I have this great idea. And it's like crickets.
Right.
I think that the converse can almost be true, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs that come to me and basically say, my mom thinks it's a great idea. And so you have to balance
yeah.
that for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
So I absolutely have seen both sides of that. So that's when you said that, I chuckle escaped me because I've seen that repeatedly. They validate a venture concept based upon which the advice of their closest family and friends is like that is valuable, but maybe not for a business. We'll see.
Right.
But no,
that
I
that actually
appreciate.
that reminds me of, like, if you guys remember the earlier episodes of American Idol. My mom said I could
Yeah.
sing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Warwick, you have anything to add to that?
Man, there's a lot of things actually.
Sure.
However, but I think that I wish I would have known a little bit more about. Now, I was never a numbers guy, right? You know what I mean? I did sales, I did business development, all those types of things. But I think the things that got me the most was how hard it was to actually build processes and procedures, right? That you can translate to others. Because I think one of the problems that a lot of entrepreneurs have is they can't, especially the solopreneurs, they can't scale because they can't get past the idea that, I have to hand off duties, or I have to delegate, or I have to entrust someone with my baby. And I just think that, from the beginning, because Takesha and I, we wore a lot of hats at the beginning, but we were two people though. That's a little bit different. So we wore a lot of hats, but just divvying off some of those responsibilities with some of that income, being more intentional with the income you bring in, understanding, hey, I need to get rid of these processes. I need to kind of write these things down and duplicate these things and better these things so I can just scale a little bit faster. Not super fast, but just a little bit faster that, I'm providing jobs and opportunities at the same time, but I'm also doing the good business a great benefit by handing off some of the responsibilities.
Many early founders, they come to they hit the brick wall when they understand this thing, and I'm sure all of you, Yves, you'll get a chuckle out of that. You as an individual are an unscalable entity. So
Right.
you have a cap of what you can do, and outside of that, you got to bring more resources and assets and probably you said processes and procedures to bear. So that's a really good point.
Yeah,
Lauren.
and burnout is real, people. Burnout is 1000% real, and we understand. We participate. People like the people you see on this panel participate in these types of things because we're not just here to help people in their business success and prowess. We're here to help them mentally as well. Provide that support and that backbone because burnout is real. That's just one particular thing, and we run into people all the time, and we have to help them through that. And it's hard.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, Lauren. To you, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs looking to start out on their own, and what did you wish you had known before you started?
So that's like a month-long conversation that we go on about, and I'm just going to keep it real, right? So there's a lot of things that you need to know before becoming an entrepreneur. A lot of things that I didn't know, right? I saw a successful grandfather and I was like, I'm just going to go do that. But I hadn't heard the stories about depression that can come. I hadn't heard the stories about being broke sometimes. I hadn't heard the stories about, friends or family who probably you lent money to that never gave the money back. And, I hadn't heard the stories about where you could look for money, right? When you need it. So, my advice is surround yourself with successful people. That is so important. For so many reasons, because you will become depressed at some point. You will have money problems at some point, and you will need some guidance, right? As to people who have had that experience that can walk you through it, right? One time I had an issue and I was down like, a few thousands of dollars. And then I went and I talked to my buddy, who's a very successful CEO. And he told me about a story where he lost 600 grand and his wife was about to leave him, right? So my perspective changed immediately. I was like, oh, okay, well, if this happened to him and he's still successful, he's still married, he got through it, I know that I can get through it. But if you don't have people like that around you, those times will become extremely difficult. So mental fortitude are an absolute requirement for entrepreneurship. The people that have been billionaires, the people that are CEOs of your top corporations, you hear it all the time. When stress comes, you start hearing about terrible stories where people were taken to windows. You know what I mean? That's not just because they've lost a little money. There are a lot of emotional aspects of entrepreneurship that we need to talk about that we don't, right? We oftentimes just glorify, we're up, I've got a beautiful office, I've got a staff, I'm raising money, I just won this. And you get to see the results of it, but we don't talk about the process enough, especially for Black and Brown entrepreneurs. The money part is just going to be a killer, man. You got to have people around you that have had experiences. You have to make rich friends. You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to step outside your comfort zone. You have to be bold. You have to be extroverted, right? You have to push yourself into circles and ecosystems that you are not familiar with. You have to be willing to acquire useless knowledge that has nothing to do with what you do in your industry, right? We always talk about best practices and following trends, but it's also great to have useless knowledge just to find commonality with someone, right? If I don't know Logan and we're at a networking event, and I'm like, gosh, this guy is probably, maybe he's a billionaire. And I'm like, I really need access to people who have better information. If he's a football fan and I don't know much about football, where do we find commonality? So sometimes having useless knowledge will help you to break the barrier, be more bold, and talk to people that can ultimately give you resources and help you in your future. So whether it be your pastor, investors, other entrepreneurs, surround yourself with people that want to see you win.
Mhm.
Thanks, Lauren. That is a lot of really good points there. And I wish I was a closet billionaire like you may have mentioned. That would be really great. That'd solve a lot of problems for me. So, but we'll move on to Ken. And Ken, you might have some interesting insight because you've kind of spanned the world of business, entrepreneurship, and municipal or organization, NGO, non-government organizations, if you will. So that's my question. What's your piece of advice to entrepreneurs, and what would you have liked to have known before you started out on your journey?
Yeah, perfect question. Thank you, Logan. And I'm going to build on some of the things that Lauren touched on. In fact, Lauren and I met each other at the Urban Chamber, and she did a very good job of tapping into the network that we had there. So the first thing I want to say to possible entrepreneurs is tap into resources that are already there for you. For example, there's something called the Small Business Development Center, or SBDC. That is a national system. It doesn't matter what state you're in, what city you're in. It's a nationwide network of small business development centers. Here in Nevada, it's called the NSBDC, for Nevada Small Business Development Center. It's free. Let me say that again. It's free. In addition to that, there's SCORE. SCORE used to stand for Service Corps of Retired Executives, but one of the things they realized as they were working with more and more entrepreneurs, you can't take the corporate cookie cutter lessons and apply them to being entrepreneurs. So more and more they've been recruiting people that have a bit more of a more recent entrepreneurial background. In addition to that, what I want to suggest is that as you're going after these resources, make sure that they are both professionally and culturally competent. And what do I mean by that? It helps when you're talking to a SCORE counselor or NSBDC advisor, if you can also get a feel for the fact that they're going to be culturally competent. And that doesn't mean they have to be the same ethnicity as you, but if they are, and yet they still appreciate the professional aspects of being an entrepreneur and the successful fundamental things that you need to do, it can be a force multiplier in terms of you efficiently getting to a point of success. But the main thing I want you to hear me clearly about is access those resources at SCORE and the SBDC system and network, because they're free resources, but they can be very valuable in helping you avoid learning all lessons for yourself. As far as a lesson that I wish I had learned when I was an entrepreneur, and I'm going to go back to what Lauren talked about, and Takesha and Ward touched on it as well. Balance, the importance of family life, having friends, having associates. For example, every spring I used to go to a spring training down in Arizona. And one of the things I had to learn, and I'll never forget one of my friends, they said, Ken, are you going to spring training? And in my mind, I'm a brand new startup, quote unquote. I don't have time to do that. What did Warwick say? Burnout is real. What did Lauren say? You're going to deal with depression. Yeah, I had money problems too. But you know what? I figured out a way to pay for a Southwest ticket. I figured out a way to pull together $50 to $100 and make a couple of spring training games early in my business. Best thing I could have ever done.
Excellent. Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. Yves, I mean, you're in the thick of raising capital and scaling a tech startup. So you're in the midst of learning these freshly again. So I'm assuming you have some good insight. Again, to you, what is a piece of advice you have for entrepreneurs? What do you wish you had known before you started out on this crazy journey?
Whew, man, absolutely. Okay, all right. So one thing that serves me well is definitely having an abundance mindset. So let me just kind of break that down real quick. So a scarcity mindset is you are always feeling like you never have enough. There's not enough money. There's not enough opportunities, and as you kind of go through your journey, everything is stressful because you're always worried. And the abundance mindset is this opposite, that you believe in what you're doing. You believe there's enough money. You believe there's enough sales. You believe there's enough opportunity. You can't see it. Think of like going down a hallway and you can't see at the end of the hallway, but you just know that there's going to be a left or a right turn at the end of that hallway. And at the end of that hallway is a bag of money or there's a sale, but you just keep moving in faith. And that serves me well. It keeps my blood pressure down. It keeps my mental very healthy. As soon as something comes up, I go, okay, so what's next? And that has served me well. One of the other things that I wish I knew was more about numbers and what numbers mean in tech. So, I mean, there are like 100 acronyms, ARR, MRR, I mean, it's like, what is that? What does that mean? And how can I build a business around these numbers and these metrics? So I wish I had studied a lot earlier. I think that it would have helped me a lot more in my journey. But again, my abundance mindset kind of just got me through all these little bumps and bruises where I just, got into this routine of like, okay, you know what? I'm going to educate myself and I'm going to pick up the pace so that when I do talk to an investor and they ask me, what's your CAC? I'm like, oh, my customer acquisition cost? Oh, it's this number. Or, what's your MRR? Oh, my monthly reoccurring revenue? Oh, well, it's this number. Now we can debate from there, what the numbers are, but at least I'm educated in a sense to always like help set goals for my team, how to, strive to get to another like level. And as I keep climbing up, guess what? My valuation goes up. And understanding your valuation is another big part of the thing that we need to learn. So I would tell everybody, like, study up. Like, if this is going to be your thing, make it your thing. Make it your thing. Dominate in this thing.
Yeah, Yves, and I just emphasize like there's a saying out there, and I'm sure you guys have heard it or felt it, is that the difference between a business and a hobby is the numbers. So
Yeah.
like knowing your numbers and having the financials and the marketing information down, your metrics, et cetera, that and deriving insight from those will be the difference between, is this a hobby or is this a business? So absolutely great insight. We're
And
not
one last thing.
Go ahead.
I'll say this. You know, if you're building a brand, right? Nobody should be more obsessed about that brand than you. Nobody. Okay. I don't care who it is. So it's kind of like, put that brand on your hat, put that brand on your wrist. Like, don't be shy, you know, like put it on your car, put it in your house, you know, eat, breathe, sleep this thing, because you know what? It takes 10 years to build a brand. 10. If you think that you're going to build this thing overnight, you're wrong.
Ooh, that's a really good insight, you guys. Appreciate it. We're going to now defer to some questions online. Rakshana, do you have any of those?
I have one question online, then I have one question from me personally. So from online, where do you find or attract investors who want to help change the landscape of the West Side, opposed to merely looking to invest in technology? And in that, I'm assuming as in the West Side of Vegas. I'm going to make that assumption.
Yeah, that's correct.
What's like this?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
Excellent. Anyone
Yeah.
want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, I'll start it off, and then others may want to contribute. I'm familiar with West Side. Just very quickly, for those that are tuned in, there's an area here in Las Vegas proper. It's bounded approximately by I-15 to the east, the 95 to the south, Rancho to the west, and then Lake Mead to the north. And traditionally, there's been a lot of disinvestment there, although the city of Las Vegas has an effort underway called the 100 Plan in Action. And when I talk about disinvestment, other areas have built up, but it's kind of like this area has been left behind. The way I would succinctly answer that question is to say, the way to attract investors is, on the one hand, you want to find people with money, but at the same time, you want to find people with money that maybe they came from a background like mine, where I grew up single parent, mother, 3 boys, father never in the picture. So part of my call to action is, I want to be successful professionally, but at the same time, I want to position myself to help Black and brown young men that may come from a similar background. So what I'm getting at is, you may want to align yourself with developers that find somebody at Howard Hughes or maybe at American Nevada Corporation, that they may be a multimillionaire, they may be a billionaire developer, but maybe they grew up in a part of town where there was disinvestment. So now they're committed to a corporate cause to put some of their money and resources back into an area like that. So that's a general strategy that I would suggest.
That's great. That's great advice, Ken. Totally on point there. I think, you know, a lot of times people are a little too caught up in finding the investors, right? So I'll give you an example of how I obtained venture capital, and really I wasn't looking. So what happens is, sometimes you don't need to always be looking. Sometimes you have everything that you need if you just look around you. You show up to the places where, like Ken mentioned, you know, you get yourselves in the building of events where developers are, where real estate investors are. You need to know your audience, right? So you wouldn't want to go to a tech incubator to get money for a real estate project. You would want to know your audience and be able to go to a place like Howard Hughes, where there are several developers and investors that are looking specifically for that. But sometimes you can actually not have to, you don't have to depend on other people. Sometimes it's within your network, right? You have a bunch of people here in this group who are already investors. You know, you have opportunity to say, you know what, these people live in my neighborhood or in my city. I just need to have a few meetings with them. And it seems like all of the resources are here if I just look around. So sometimes you don't have to always be looking. Sometimes it's just there and you have to tap in and tune in, and know your audience and be present and let the Lord use you. You know what I mean? Like Yves mentioned, so a lot of entrepreneurship is about walking by faith. Huge, huge, huge. You have to have the abundance mindset, and you have to be willing to walk by faith and go through dark alleys without understanding where the light will be, but knowing that there will be light. So yeah, I would definitely say know your audience. Don't always be looking, and you'd be surprised what's actually right in front of you.
Yeah, I want to reiterate something in regards to what you guys were saying. We knew a girl once out in Vegas who would always, it was one of Takesha's friends, who would constantly be going out on dates with guys that had private jets, and you know, and she was always in the most lavish of places, but she wasn't from wealth, you know what I mean? But she just knew how to put herself in certain places. She would bring up things that we had no idea. She was like, oh, I'm a part of this app and this and that. You're like, where'd you even find that? You know, I mean, where you come up with this thing? But she had this ingenuity, this thing to put herself in a certain place at all times. Now, back to what Lauren was saying, you know, I mean, she wasn't necessarily looking for it or going after it, but she said, hey, I'm in a place where they are. I know where they are. So I have more of an opportunity to meet these people if I'm always in their presence. So constantly she's there, you know, and we did that same model with our business, you know, and we were very intentional about how we did this. We're a B2B business. We knew that we needed to be in a work share. Well, work, put yourself at a WeWork or work share of some sort, you know, and all those types of things, because I'm a business. I'm a B2B business, and my clients are all around me, you know, just doing basic things or having a meeting in a public space or talk. People just ask questions, and next thing you know, you have a client, a strategic partner, an investor, whatever it may be, because you're constantly placing yourself where your ideal persona is.
Yeah,
so
put in that, we call them collision zones. Like when we talk about, like from a venture capital viewpoint, it's like, or from an entrepreneur development viewpoint, we say, where can we build these collision zones where people can bump into each other, ideas can start churning, and you know, it sparks from there. But yeah, put yourself in the way of opportunity, and opportunity will hit you.
Absolutely.
Yves, you know, anything to add to that?
Well, I'm kind of new to Vegas, so I mean, I'm learning to play golf. Like that's my secret. Learn how to play golf, be out there, you know, collision, you know. But yep. I'm studying Vegas. I actually watched a special called Black in Vegas. It was a story about the West Side, how Black entertainers were historically discriminated against in Vegas, and you know, learned about like Moulin Rouge, and you know, learned about a lot of different things. You know, this is a story that is across America, where it's just like, you know, disenfranchised neighborhoods, redlining, all kinds of things. Again, I look at tech as like the main new thing to get, you know, more just like an acceleration of wealth in the Black community, because you know what we are seeing is these tech companies growing in their valuations as they continue to start to expand across the globe and have a global footprint. So I mean, I have big aspirations to take Work B&B IPO. I really believe in everything that I'm doing. I believe I'm actually doing God's work because housing is, to me, is God's work. And construction is forever, engineering is forever, power transmission is forever. And as long as that continues to grow around the world, workers are going to be traveling all over the place. But headquartering is also very important in tech. Where are you headquartered? Where are you hiring? Where are you bringing jobs? All that type of stuff. And, going to communities like the West Side and doing hiring events and various other things are a way for, a Black tech company like me to get back to a new community that I'm moving to. So now, again, I'm looking to not just hire people and pay them lousy wages. Tech historically is higher pay wages, really great benefits, a lot of growth and opportunities to grow into their careers and then get into spaces where we haven't seen. So, that's just, some of the achievables. But one of the other things that I think a lot of tech founders also need to have more conversations about, especially if they're building their tech companies here in Vegas, is, you got to get down to what do you believe and how are you proving that this is what you believe. So if you believe in diversity, inclusion, all that stuff, like make sure that your board is not an all-male board. Number one, get rid of that. Like diversify the board. 50% of our board are women of color. We're 100% minority owned, except Techstars does have a piece in us. So, technically they have their little chunk, but make sure that the executives are diverse. And if that's what you believe, then prove it. And, don't be afraid to prove it in the startup phase. There's so many companies that I meet that say, oh, well, I don't want to form a board until I'm a Series A company. Right. Why? Like you're just delaying, so that you can do all this smoke and mirrors and all this type of stuff, saying that you care about something, but you're actually not proving it. So, at the pre-seed level, don't be afraid to form a board, put together, your people, get all your passions and things aligned on what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, and then make it happen. And if you're growing your tech company out of a neighborhood that is having lots of historical problems, find ways to give back. I learned that at Techstars. We call it Give First. You can look up the hashtag Give First. It's in our DNA at Techstars.
Excellent. Appreciate you, Vez. Rakshana, I think that you, Takesha, if you had something to add, please do.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the answer to the question, and I'll ask it again. Where do you find or attract investors who want to help change the landscape of the West Side as opposed to merely looking to invest in technology? And I don't know exactly what business you are in, but I think sometimes, and I'm speaking to myself as well, right? Because I don't want to sound like I'm speaking at anyone. Sometimes we forget the power of Google, right? Research. Really, like research, look it up, check out who is investing in underrepresented communities in Las Vegas, who's looking to, like when you do a lot of that research and ask the same question several different ways, you would be surprised as to what comes up. And then not only that, once you make a list of maybe 2 to 5 companies that you have found, right, create a presentation that aligns with their language and their beliefs, find out who is involved in those companies, find out where they're going, where they're hanging out, and then bump into them and start having these conversations, right? And I just cannot reiterate enough the power of Google, because a lot of what we have done has been based on research that we did just by looking it up.
Mm-hmm. That's right? A really good point.
Yeah, and sometimes I forget that I could just, like, I'm like, oh my God, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? And I've asked like 12 people. And then it's like, wait a minute, I spent like a month looking for this and I never thought, let me just Google it. And then the answer is right there. And I'm like, duh, right? So, and I'm not saying that you haven't done that. I don't know what industry you're in, But in the event that you haven't, just remember that Google is your best friend.
Or using
Yeah,
that.
I would add
Stacking
to that.
Google with Chat GPT.
Yes.
And I'm just saying, like, you can get a lot of different insights. Anyway, but we will digress that. But Lauren, to you.
Yeah, no, I would add to what Takesha's saying. Research is a huge part of entrepreneurship, and investors definitely will expect you to have done your research, right, before you come to them. But also I would add, don't be afraid to become them. You could be the investor, right? You can, you can go through your friends list and through your network and say, hey, let's everybody put in $500 or $1,000. And I'm telling you this because I've done it, right? Where I was wondering, hey, who's investing in Black and brown entrepreneurs here in Las Vegas? And I couldn't find a long list. So I said, you know what? I'll do it. I'll hit up some of my business owner friends and I'll ask them if they'll put $250, $500, or $1,000 in the pot. I've got, Fortune 100 clients. Hey, you guys love what we're doing as far as, bringing you top talented, diverse professionals. How about investing in underrepresented founders? And they say, yeah, because we're intentional and we mean it, right? Like Yvez is saying, they want to prove the point. And so don't be afraid to become the investor and to start a group where you can bring together funds that will help you to bootstrap really and prove that to someone with more money and they'll go, wow, you raised 50 grand from your friends and your family. Okay, I see that you've done your research, you went through your network and you're doing what it takes. Now here's 150,000, here's $1 million. So don't be afraid to become the investor.
That's actually a really good point. I do want to make sure that we have at least time for one or two more questions with our last 10 minutes or so. Rukshana, I know you had a question. You want to pose that to the panel now?
I do, but real quick for the question. There's two resources that are in your neighborhood. Historic West Side School, the city of Las Vegas does run some programs out of there. So they host some events there. If you want, go there, see what events are going on. That'll help build your network. There's a mosque that's in the historic West Side. There's an imam that's there that has a close relationship with Councilman Creer. Go to the mosque, talk to him. He'll be able to connect you with a councilman that is very influential in that neighborhood. Now, question that I have, and I wanted to take this opportunity because I have this incredible panel in front of me, and I feel like this question will help some people navigate and understand that they are not alone in some of the situations that may arise. Being a minority founder, along the way, I'm sure you've run into some unique situations that somebody that is not a minority would not have. I'd like to discuss some of those situations. How did you overcome them or get past them? How did you take the higher road? And if you could provide any lessons that you've learned from it, just to people who are, upcoming founders trying to navigate being a minority.
Really great question. I think we'll go with our the normal order just to keep things succinct. Warwick, Takesha, maybe we can start with you two.
Sure. So one of the things or one of the ways I've had to start looking at life is that because of who I am as a Black woman of Haitian descent, right? It's like I carry with me a unique perspective that a lot of people couldn't even buy. And with that, if you don't acknowledge and celebrate my uniqueness, then you are not worth being in the same space as I am, right? And with that perspective, it has allowed me to not feel looked over when things are not working out my way because someone who doesn't look like me is not paying attention. And with that being said, an opportunity that came that is very specific and odd, or just odd, right? Abercrombie and Fitch reached out to us. No lie, my first question was, do you know what we look like? Right?
Yeah. I mean, they're totally off brand.
Right?
I mean,
we're totally
off brand.
Not only are we Black, but we're dark and we're natural. And I'm like, what? You want to do what with me? And so again, understanding and holding my head high with our unique perspective will attract those who want to be in the space for whatever reason.
Right.
And they will realize that it benefits them for whatever reason. And then we will find ways to collaborate and make sure that it's beneficial for both of us. But I try not to pay too much attention to those who don't understand, they don't celebrate it. They're not our audience, and it is what it is.
There's 8 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
And we've realized that we started long ago when we were in Vegas. That was when our entrepreneurial journey started, live events, working with the nightclubs as go-betweens and booking artists for branding, the platinum artists and recording artists and things like that. You see them on a billboard, gonna be at Privé or some other club on the strip. We were one of the groups or the organizations that made those conduits, just help them get those people on the board and everything like that. But we had decided at that point when technology started, this is around the time when MySpace and Black Planet and all that type of stuff was hitting at, the first social medias. We saw those things, so we really jumped on those things and used them, and they were highly effective. And when we saw the effect that those things had, we realized that it's all about our perception at this point. You know what I mean? You can perceive racism or you can't. Just look past it, get around, go directly at my client.
Right.
And when I go directly at my client, then I have organizations like Abercrombie and Fitch and organizations like Abercrombie and Fitch that see it and say, and we had another client, which was a big media company also, and they came to us. They're a panel of middle-aged, rich white men. You know what I mean? And we're the only people of color sitting in the room, talking to them about this, but they valued our knowledge, they valued our experience, and they really took that and gave us opportunities, and continually until this day, we still do business with them. Right. They still send us clients, and all these things, because they see that what Takesha said earlier, we have something that they couldn't buy. You know what I mean? And it's, So and we respect them for it and we thank them for it. But I really feel that it comes from that mindset that Yves was saying down low. He was saying that, hey, I have this abundance mindset. I'm going to think past it, and I'm going to utilize the fact that, or take advantage of the fact that there are 8 billion people in this world.
Yeah.
And I can really get around those people throwing up blocks or objects.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you guys for the insight. Lauren, to you, any thoughts on this, Roxana's question?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I appreciate, the answers so far. I think, you just have to really know your audience and be okay with everyone not getting it. And, like you mentioned, there's a lot of people in the world. There are a lot of other businesses that are available that are open and inclusive that want to work with you. And so if the objection has anything to do with the way you look or, what you pray or anything like that, then that's not the ideal client you want to work with. I've had more issues probably just being a woman as opposed to, being a Black woman. I really don't see a lot of issues in the space of, racial issues when it comes to entrepreneurship. But when it comes to being a woman in a male dominated field, you will run into some issues there. And so being able to present yourself in a way that is aggressive but not annoying is very important, especially when dealing with men. And then helping people overcome, yes, I look like this, and I know you haven't traditionally seen staffing owners that are not older white men. And it's okay. Let me walk you through this, right? We are going to provide you a great service, and you will have the end result, which will be excellence. But this will be a learning opportunity, right? For you to see that other people can do this work and other people can be excellent as well. And so I had an issue some years ago that I guess would be kind of racial, where I was approaching a client and we went through several different interview stages to bring us on as a vendor. And everything went well until it got to the next level, which was to talk with the CEO. And, this guy was sitting in the Midwest and he said, Lauren, I love everything that your company's doing. I love I believe that you would help us. But the CEO is in the Midwest and he's over 60. And he dropped all these kind of clues, you know what I mean? That were like, he's not going to go for someone that looks like you. And that was okay. Thank you for being transparent. I've lived in the Midwest. I understand different mentalities. And that's okay if you're not my client, someone else will be, right? Years later, now I've got clients that are white guys that are over 60 that call and say, hey, I'm running $1 billion vertical in my organization and I'm tired of just seeing people that look like me. Can you help us diversify our team? We understand what this means for the bottom line, right? This helps with our creativity. It helps with innovation. So you have to know who your allies are as a minority. That's very important. I wouldn't box yourself into one group or another because there are people out there that won't see the types of things that you think traditionally would hold you back, and it'll take you much further than you could ever imagine.
Yeah, excellent, Lauren. Appreciate that and your anecdote as well. Ken, to you, do you have any insight on this?
Yes. What I really appreciate what Takesha, Warwick, and Lauren said, and I'm going to build on it. They talked about excellence and knowing yourself and being comfortable with yourself. Years ago, I learned a quote by Dr. King, and what it said is, confidence knows no color. And what I'm getting at there is one of the most important things you can do to overcome some of the racial disparities, discrimination, et cetera, is just be competent, good at what you're doing, confident in what you're doing. And I'll give an example. I've had the privilege, I'm a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. I mentioned I'm a civil engineer degree from the Air Force Academy. I picked up an MBA along the way, University of Phoenix. I've traveled. Here's where I'm going with this. I've built up a level of competence and credentials that it doesn't matter the room that I'm in or whatever, I'm competent. And I'll give you an example. I sit on boards. In fact, most recently, I sat on the Las Vegas Stadium Authority Board, which was the board that helped to do the pre-development work, construct, and then eventually operate Allegiant, what is now known as Allegiant Stadium, the home of the Las Vegas Raiders. And yeah, I'm a Raiders fan since the 70s. Got to get that in real quick. Where am I going with this? There are some people, because I was the only Black that sat on that board, would say, oh, he's a token, or, he's a this. And then even sometimes from within my own community, they question my Blackness or my tie to the community, and am I going to be an advocate for the community? So it can cut both ways. Here's the bottom line. The reason why I was sitting on that board is because, first and foremost, I was an engineer that had both commercial and residential development and an understanding of the construction industry in this market. Number two, I had a bit of a finance background. Again, both residential and commercial development related finance, plus picked up a little bit more finance background as an investor as well. Finally, I had a background and a connection to the community from being here since 1989 and watching the explosive growth in the community. And when I say community, that's both the Black community as well as what I call the universal community, the ties to the community across the board. So I wasn't a token sitting on the Stadium Authority Board. I was there because I had competence in all three areas they were looking for: development, finance, and then a tie to the community. So I go back to what I started out with. Probably the most important thing you can do to counter racial discrimination, biases, prejudice that would hinder you or hamper you as an entrepreneur, be competent.
Ken, excellent. Thank you so much. And Yves, any examples, anecdotes, things you've learned, and you'll be our parting speaker on this.
Yeah. So I try not to copy everybody's answers. I don't like to do that, but I'm gonna bring up something that is in the same vein as everybody's been kind of touching on. But there's this topic. It's you can Google it. It's called code switching. And I'm not a big fan of code switching. Okay, I'm just not. It's where you act a certain way in front of different group of people. And what that means is that you are not being authentically yourself. And the reason why I don't agree with this is because you are wasting energy being somebody else. So it's like, listen, this entrepreneur journey is hard. It's crazy. You're going to go through like all these emotional highs and lows, and it's like a 24-hour period, oh, I got a sale at 9 a.m., but oh my God, I can't pay this bill, or I can't make it to this event, or I can't do this thing. By 3 o'clock, you can be pulling your hair out. So if you're spending any energy code switching from room to room, you're going to feel lost. And one of the things that I've heard from very smart people, very wise people, is the worst lie you tell is the lie you tell yourself. And if you start lying to yourself that, oh, I'm this person in this room, and I'm this person in that room, and I'm this person in that room, you're going to confuse everybody when they're in a different room that you were in like last week, and they see you in a different light. They're like, no, that's not the person that I knew. So it's kind of like, listen, like, don't waste any energy. Time and energy is capital as far as an entrepreneur. So if you want to be rich with like real, like tangible, something that is going to energize you every single day, be authentically yourself. I grew up with a very swaggy uncle. I mean, he always had the coolest haircut. He had the coolest outfit and all that type of stuff. And, I adopted a lot of that swagginess myself. I love it. I've always been swaggy since I was in high school. I've always been swaggy since I've been an adult. I go to brunch wearing Jordans, right? Like, I have fun. And it's because it's fun. It makes me feel more alive that I'm enjoying this ride. And a lot of people make the wrong, assumptions about tech. They feel like, oh, if I just build this app, everything's going to be all right. No, dude, you're never going to be done with this app. It's never going to be done. It's always going to have to be updated. It's going to always keep growing. Stop thinking that you have to arrive at a certain point and then it's over. No, if you are really about this, you need to be yourself all the way through. And that's my advice.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. I want to thank the panelists. This was all really excellent insight. And thank you for everyone who's attending online and those that will see this recording. This will be valuable to Startup NV and our ecosystem community, and we'll make sure. And I'm hoping a lot more people will see this, and I hope it was of a high value to those attending right now. But thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you coming out, sharing your insight. We're probably going to do this every half year, every quarter, or something like this, and throw together with a in-person panel at some point, and put a party with it in some capacity. But again, thank you all for joining us, everyone. This has been Foundation Branding, Marketing, Entrepreneurship, Startups with this. It's a special Startup NV session. It's been a privilege to have our speakers here. Thank you all for joining us. It's about 10 after 7, so we are going to bid everyone adieu and let them get home. Please reach out to us at startupnv.org, or you can reach me at logan@startupnv.org if you want to get in touch with any of our panelists, and please visit them. We put the links here in the chat, and we'll put them in the YouTube video description. It's online as well. Reach out to them if you need resources or want to connect, whether it's All in Recruiting, the Brand Amplifiers, NYS Firm, Urban Chamber, Work B&B. Follow them or connect with them on LinkedIn. They're in it for this community, as well as professional service providers and entrepreneurs and business people and investors. So please connect with them. Anyway, thank the panelists one more time. I'll see you. Please let me know if you have any questions following up this, but thank you so much for joining us.